Okay, before we start, I want to just talk about some of the supplies you're going to need. First and foremost, of course, is the mold. The best mold I've found for skull at a reasonable price, a great price, is from Pacific Molds. This is the large skull size they make. This is one of the bones that they offer as well. And this is the smaller skull, which is what I'm going to be using for my project right now. This is more life-size and works for my project the best. I'm using liquid latex mold builder. There are other liquid latexes on the market that you can use, but this is the most convenient for me to find in my area, so I go and buy these in the larger canister or the small one. I also use cornstarch on occasion. This is either to thicken some of the silicone up, some of the latex up, or it also helps me when I'm peeling the latex off to stop it from sticking to itself. So this is an important process in the middle of it. Also, I use to fill the back with foam. The foam that I'm using is a product from Sika called Fence Post Mix. You can buy this at many hardware stores. I found mine at a True Value store, an Ace store, and also at Home Depot. It's a two-part polyfoam, and I'll show you this step as well. Also, please remember to wear safety goggles. And you're going to need gloves for some of this process. The latex is probably the easiest part, but when you start using the foam, you want to put gloves on because it sticks to everything. Of course, you'll also need some chip brushes, some stirring sticks, and I also cut some strips of plastic. This also helps with the foam on the back, and I'll show you how I use this at the end. Be careful and be safe. Make sure you read all the instructions on all the products, and good luck. Have fun. Okay, the easiest part of this whole project is putting on the latex rubber. It's really pretty simple. So I'm just taking my mask. It's relatively clean. It's got some cornstarch in it from prior, but that's not a big deal. Just take the mold, and then I take some mold builder. This one I've thinned down a little bit with water, but you can see it's got a pretty thin consistency. And all you do is you paint it on. Now it'll take a number of coats. And I'll be honest with you, my coats, depends on how bored I am with the project. It might be 5 coats, it might be 8 coats. And sometimes I use a thickening agent on some of the later coats where the detail isn't needed as much. But all you do is take some of this liquid latex and you paint it right onto the mold. Pretty simple stuff. Make sure you get all the areas covered. And I tend to go pretty light in the beginning. And after I brush it on, I will go back and stipple it a little bit just so you don't get any brush strokes on the first layer on the top of the mold. And some of these molds I've used for casting other materials. So there's some imperfections. But it doesn't really matter because most of my molds, when I'm done with it, most of my skulls will be painted to look like distressed skulls anyway. So once I've got a pretty good coat all over it, then I go back and I just stipple it. And like I said, that just takes out some of the brush strokes. Now this, as you can see, goes on white, but I have in other instances, I've tinted my latex with either a brown acrylic paint or black acrylic paint to get various tones in the skulls and some marbleized look to them. Sometimes people like to do them in black instead of white because then all you really need to do is dry brush some white on the top of them and it saves you some painting steps if that's the look you're going for. So I just take this now and I will put it in front of a fan for probably about half an hour, maybe a little longer. It changes color when it dries. It turns a little yellowy tint or clear depending how thin it is. And then you can do another layer on. Like I said, I do anywhere between 5 and probably 8 layers depending on how thick I want it. Of course, the more you do, the thicker it gets. It's a little more, holds up a little bit better, I think, if you're not going to fill it with foam in the back, of course. Okay, now I've jumped ahead a little bit. I've got some molds that I've already poured in a number of layers on them. I think there's at least 5 or 6 layers on these, and I would do a couple thin coats, and then I would thicken them up with some starch and do a couple thick coats on the end. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to peel it off. So this is one of the Pacific Mold skulls with probably 6 or 7 layers of latex inside. The first thing I do after I get it to this stage, I peel a little off and I see if it's going to be, I think, thick enough to work with. And this one is, you can probably see it, I'm peeling a little bit. Perfect. So what you do is you just peel a little bit of it, and then you put some cornstarch all around, and this prevents it from sticking to itself. You do both sides, the inside and the outside. So I'll do the inside first real quick. And you just be careful to get the edges. And around the eyes and the mouth on the inside. So you don't have to go crazy, but just get enough on there so it's not going to stick to itself. And you can find cornstarch in any grocery store. It's pretty cheap. It goes a long way. And I'm just using another chip brush to apply it. Then I slowly peel some of it away. And as I peel, I'm careful not to let it stick to itself. When I get a decent amount peeled away, then I go in and I do the same thing with the cornstarch on the inside. If you're one of those kids that used to paste out rubber cement and then peel it off, you'll love this project. The hardest part is actually peeling the edges. Once you get the edges peeled off, it comes out pretty easily from the mold itself. This one, I believe I put a little brown into the latex. In fact, I'm sure of it. And you'll see the color when you pull it out. Just be careful around the eyes and the nose cavity. And if it does stick to itself, you can usually have a little time to rescue yourself. Like right there, you can see it's stuck to itself. You just pull on it real quick. And then go to the cornstarch. You got a little too much on there. Push the eyeballs back in. And there you have one. So this is just latex. And there are all sorts of things you can do with this as well, but for my purposes, I then need to go and fill the back with foam. So it still has a little bit of a structure to it, but it's light enough that I can hang it and glue it onto the walls and things, and it's not gonna, if you put enough of them on there, it's not gonna make the panel too heavy. So there it is, there's the outside, there's the inside. Okay, for the final part of this is when I'm gonna pour the foam into the back of the latex mask. And I do that because I need a little more structure for my building projects. So what I do is I just take the same molds again from Pacific Mold, and I take the latex mask that I just removed from them and I put it back in place. Just sort of snugly get it in place and it should fit fine. This is actually one that I've already been playing with and I painted a little bit. And the inside of it also has some rougher texture because I did a different mold using the inside of this one. But now I'm just going to fill it up because I found another use for it. So the molds fit in there snugly. Now the product that I'm using to fill it, like I mentioned earlier, is called Sika Fence Post Mix. And it comes in 2 different bags. And what happens is when you mix the top portion with the bottom portion, a chemical reaction happens. The foam starts to expand. It generates heat, so this is when you do want to wear gloves. You probably want to wear eye protection as well. And you have about probably 20-25 seconds once you mix the materials together to pour it in place and make sure it's where you want it. And I'm going to talk about it before I actually do it. So I've pre-measured two different cups. One is more of a green tint, and one is a brown tint. There's about 3 ounces in each, maybe a little less. These cups won't be saved. I'll be throwing them away when I'm done. And the stirrer that I use also will not survive this process. So be ready to use a lot of stirrers and cups if this is the method you're going to choose to go with. So all you do is you pour, I pour usually the brown one into the green one because it's a little, it's not as thick, so it's easier to pour, and I think it's easier to measure. It should be equal parts. Like I said, I have 3 ounces in each or thereabout, just about 3 ounces. And I think that's going to roughly give me enough for what I need. Mine don't have to be perfect because, again, I'm gluing them onto some other structure after the fact. I just need them to give a little more rigidity to my product. Okay, again, I've got equal parts A and B, about 3 ounces of each. One's brown, one's green. I typically pour the brown into the green because it pours easier. And then I stir for about 20 seconds, and then I do a light coating as best I can over each one and get it in the areas that I want, around the eyes, around the nose, so it'll start foaming up, and make sure I cover the cavity as best I can. So basically, I'm going to pour right now. Get all as much as you can. And when it starts to change colors, it already has, it's mixing together. Make sure you get the sides, make sure you get the bottom. And when you use that Sika product, make sure you read all the instructions because there are some risks involved, so be careful when you do this. So it's starting to be a little creamier colored. It's starting to get a little bit, looks like it's foaming up slightly, but still very easy to pour. Be careful, this will stick to everything once it starts expanding. So you can see it's a chemical reaction. You can see that it's bubbling up in my cup a little bit. So I'm just going to pour some in, right down the nose, in both of them, around the eyes. Get any extra if I need it, but I don't think I'm going to in this project. So then I just sort of slosh it around a little bit. Make sure the top of the skull gets some in there. So be careful. If you're trying to do too much at one time, this stuff will start expanding and get ahead of you. So do it in small batches. It's just easier to control, and your end product will turn out better. So you can see it's already starting to bubble up. So this is where these 2 pieces of plastic come in that I told about. So I cut strips of just a garbage bag, so it'll fit over the mold, because once it starts rising too high, I push it down a little bit and give it a flatter surface. So it's already coming up to the top here, and as you can see, it's rising a little bit, so I just push it down gently, and it fills in some of the side cavities a little bit better. I've already lost some foam off the side there. When I'm working in foam, I try and clean up as best I can, as fast as I can, because like I said, it sticks to everything. Now these will set in about probably 20 to 30 minutes. You can see it's rising. You can feel the heat off the back from back. It's been about half an hour or so. These are both very hard already. And all I do when I want to take the mold out of the shell, first thing I do is peel back that plastic. It gives you a nice smoother coat on the back. Break off some of these little bits on the side. It may still be sticky, so be careful if you do this too soon, but mine isn't. And then you just basically peel it out. So there's one of the skulls. And it probably weighs less than a pound. It's perfect. So there's one. Here's the other one. Again, I just peel off the plastic. I can reuse this for the next one also. And then I just peel it out of the mold. There's the one that I painted already. So I think these molds work perfect for my latex solution. A few other ones that I've done already. This is one that I did, and I sprayed the inside of this with a blue plastic paint, so it has a little bit of a blue tint, and I painted it some eyes and gave it a little more tone. Here's another one. Here's one of the larger ones that I did the same process with latex on the outside and then spray foam on the inside. This maybe weighs a pound and a half at the most. So it'll be easy to hang. And then here's some other shells. When I do this, I typically do it in 4 at a time, maybe 6 at a time. And here's some other ones that are ready to go, some latex skulls. So I hope you try it. I hope you enjoyed this process. I know these specific molds, so far for me, have been the best thing I've found on the market. Good luck.